Every manager at some time has to fire an employee. It's one of the most difficult tasks a manager has, but it must be done caringly and professionally. Layoffs are a special subset of termination, and we'll discuss the process for both in this episode. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you. While the outcome is similar, the cause and process between firing someone and laying them off are very different. With layoffs, there can be almost no warning for the employee, or in some cases for the manager either. And depending on the situation, a call for layoffs may simply speed up the process of removing underperformers or the weakest members of a team. But the difficult situations are when the team really has no weak members, but nevertheless must reduce in size.
But when you need to let someone know and they say, "Why me?" you typically want to stay away from a personal reference and talk about the function, such as when we looked at the various functions in the department, your function was one that, although important, we found that we could do with one less person. And then you also need to decide what you're going to do in order to tell the rest of the staff, and this needs to be done ahead of time.
I mean, sometimes a person's a great performer, but you got to let them go because you got to reduce the size. So yeah, it's more, you want to talk more about the function than the person in that case. Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, so what we're talking about from here on has more to do with terminating an individual rather than layoff.
Right. So, in this case where we're talking about actually firing someone for performance reasons, what's really important is you got to document the employee's behavior and the steps that you've taken to correct it. What have you done? The number of conversations, what happened. We talked about the performance improvement plan. Hopefully you've gone through that process and the performance hasn't improved. So in cases like this, dismissal should not come as a complete surprise. You really, before you talk to the employee, you've got to check with your HR department for the steps you need to follow and for the legality of what you're doing. I mean, depending on your company and your industry, this can be very touchy and depending on the individual. So you need to be very careful and follow the rules of the company very carefully.
It is one of the biggest negative situations that a boss can have if they don't do it well.
Oh, I'm sure. And the other thing you have to do is you got to be sure that you're ready to pick up the employee's duties immediately after they leave, particularly if it's a busy time in your department and things are, stretched already. So you've got to plan for that as well. And you want to consider informing the employee at the end of the workday so they can get their personal things and leave. You don't want them hanging around after you've told them, but allow them to get their stuff and leave. In some companies, they want to escort them from the building or whatever. That really is on a case-by-case basis, depending on your company.
Before you go into the dismissal meeting, You want to make sure that you have the separation letter and that you've checked it and cleared it with human resources and perhaps, if necessary, the company lawyer. And you want to make sure that you understand it. All of the various elements of the letter, such as severance, what benefits the person will have and for how long, including what and when they will be provided. You want to know when the final pay will be, including any bonuses due and accrued, such as vacation time. Then how long will health insurance coverage go? The person's going to want to know that. And if it's not, when the coverage ends, then COBRA may come into play. You want to know whether they're going to get any outplacement help in order to move on to the next position. Treatment of vested stock options, if they have any. And then if they've had any non-compete or non-disclosure agreements that they filed along the way, you want to make sure that you have those so that you can make sure that they understand what they can and can't do when they leave. Any terms stipulated in a collective bargaining agreement, and any agreements you've made about providing a length of service letter, typically a job title and dates of service would be what the fewest things that a company may want to talk about. And a release such as a promise not to sue the company in exchange for special benefits, perhaps a longer severance time and outplacement. And all of that stuff you have before you go into the dismissal meeting. And then when you go into the dismissal meeting, as the boss, you want to deliver the message in person. It's your job. I can't tell you the number of times that Rick and I have had instances where the boss says to us, well, I'm going to have the HR person do it or my assistant or someone else. That's not the sign of a good manager. You want to meet in a place that is private and out of sight, not your office. It can be, it's better if it's in the employee's office because you can then have the meeting and then leave. But you want to have a witness, typically human resources, who can serve as an impassive voice and a buffer if there's any outburst, answer questions regarding some of the things that are in the severance letter, although you don't want to get into too much of that and at this time, and to be a witness. You want to come in, you want to state what you need to state. The meeting should be over quickly, 10 minutes or less. You want to state the facts, but you want to be pleasant, but state the facts plainly and simply. You might say, we've talked about you're not meeting the performance goals for the role 5 times in the last 18 months. The goals haven't been met. You want to be dispassionate, direct, and focused, but don't get defensive. And convey a sense of purpose and resoluteness. The decision is final. There's no discussion.
Right, but you also want to be empathetic. I mean, this is even when the process has been going on for a while, where you've had the performance improvement plan and the person knows they haven't met the benchmarks you've set for them, it still can come as a shock to them. So you really need to be sympathetic and empathetic, but at the same time, as Fred said, you got to be firm. This is what it is. The fact that you've got someone from HR there, kind of, if you can do that, makes it a lot more real. And you explain what the company is providing, assuming it's providing, outplacement or severance time, etc. Don't try to be funny. Don't try to be cute. You have to be very businesslike, but sympathetic to how the individual is feeling. And I've found, frankly, in my experience as a manager, that 9 times out of 10, it doesn't come as a shock. In fact, it comes sometimes as a relief to the person. They have not been happy in their position either, which is one of the reasons for the bad performance. So, you got to be prepared for just about any reaction. But as Fred says, keep it short, keep it brief, and hopefully you've met in a neutral area where you can get up and get out. You don't apologize. Above all, you don't indicate you might reconsider your decision. It's got to be final, and let the person know if they're going to get a reference from you. And don't say it's part of a layoff if it's not. If it's for performance, you've got to tell them that that's what it is. Sometimes the person will be angry. They may make threats. I'm going to sue, whatever. You say, well, that's whatever you feel you have to do. That's up to you. But this is where we are on this. And if you're going to cancel email accounts and voicemail, do it. Make arrangements to forward any personal messages and emails to the person. And it's appropriate to ask the person to leave or escort them out, but make sure they can get their personal belongings and all of that on their way out.
Rick, I agree with what you said, that it sounded when I was giving the statements before that it was a little bit content-based and not empathetic. And you're right, the balance is important, just as you were talking about. You want to meet the person, you want to be caring, but you also have to be very definite that this is what's going to happen, and there's not going to be any change. What about after the meeting? What do you need to do there?
Yeah, you've got to let everybody on the team know as soon as possible that the person has decided to leave the company to pursue other options. You don't want to go into detail or elaborate on your decision. Again, my experience is they already know. But you don't have to say anything. You just say, look, he or she has decided to leave the company. You don't want to say anything negative about them. Don't characterize their leaving in any way. And, to the extent you can and you think it's appropriate, provide help to them in terms of networking contacts. Again, to the extent you feel that it's appropriate, and if you think the person is worthy enough. And, you got to tell your team how the person's responsibilities are going to be divvied up amongst the team. Oh, and you also want to spend time individually with anyone on the team who may have a problem with them leaving. That is, there may be people on your team that were particularly close to the individual, so you want to take care of them, make sure that they feel they can speak to you about it, because you don't want to have bitterness left in the wake of a dismissal.
No, you just want to make sure that if you're having a meeting with someone, that you don't go into any of the specific reasons. They're just going on to pursue other options.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But you also need to document the dismissal meeting, right? Write up your notes immediately after what happened, what you said, what they said, and who was present at the meeting, particularly if you had a witness from HR.
No question. Just in case someone chooses not to take the benefits that you're going to give them, and rather, decides that they want to try and sue the company.
Right.
So there's a couple of things in terms of that could happen in the meeting. In terms of the reaction, it's obviously bad news. As Rick said, the person may have an idea, but it doesn't matter. This is moving from an idea to a formal state that the person's not going to be here. The person may have a constructive or a normal view that's characterized by predictable responses such as anger, hurt, or disappointment, and the person may assert themselves. They could be aggressive or hostile. That would be characterized by emotionalism, anger, and aggressiveness toward you or the company. There, you want to make sure that you do not get defensive or argumentative. Let them vent. There could be another situation where someone has avoidance or withdrawal. That's characterized by shock, confusion, uncertainty, and a passive approach. Take the time to discuss the person's feelings and do not rush through the meeting. However, you're still within that 10 minutes. Try to get the individual to talk. If someone sits and stares, refer them for professional health. And then there's the smooth or anticipated, characterized by a person who indicates they have anticipated the bad news and are almost relieved. This is what Rick was talking about. It could be a person who actually is relieved and ready to move on. And once in a while, you get someone who has already been out networking for another position. So those are the kinds of reactions that you could have in the actual meeting.
Yeah, and you never really know. I mean, that is the kind of hard part about that. You've got to be prepared for any of those reactions. It's never easy, but it's a responsibility of managers, and you have to be able to do it.
It's always the toughest job that a manager has.
Yeah. So in this session, we've discussed both how to proceed with a layoff, which is not the same as letting someone go for performance reasons. But in the case of a firing or letting someone go because they have not performed, all of the steps you need to take, the cautions you need to observe, and the ways to deliver the bad news, hold the meeting, and bring the whole process, hopefully, to a closure without bad incident. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.